Right away, I want to start this video by curbing your expectations. If you came here expecting a review of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, well, sadly, this isn't the video for you. I'm completely unfit to review that game, as I have never played Tokyo Mirage Sessions. I have no ill will towards the game, I just don't have any interest in paying full price for it. This video is purely a retrospective of the idea of a crossover between Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem, with a heavier focus around SMT. What we expected, what we ended up getting, what could have been, and possible hope for future products to take inspiration from the idea. With that quick disclaimer out of the way, I sincerely hope you enjoy this video. I was one of those kids who only ever really grew up playing Nintendo systems. My parents were very sheltering. They banned SpongeBob from me until 5th grade because of the more mature humor hidden in it. When they saw the Xbox, they immediately associated it with games like Halo, and those sensationalized news stories of how video games turn people violent. Even though my games were usually tame, my mother was very worried I may try to shoot up my school because of my habit of playing violent video games, such as The Legend of Zelda. I really wish that was just a joke. Anything my parents viewed as conflicting to their Catholic ideals was unacceptable, and I could only ever enjoy these things in secret. Sometimes my cousins would hide me away with a portable DVD player to watch The Simpsons. Sometimes we would play Halo on the same cousin's Xbox after agreeing on a lie to tell my parents about what we were doing. And sometimes I would have sleepovers with a friend, and he'd let me play games on the PSP he brought. This was my first experience with anything Megami Tensei related, and how I first learned about Persona 3. That friend let me play his copy of Persona 3 Portable, and although I quite controversially consider it the inferior version of the game, I was hooked instantly. I didn't get any sleep that night. It wasn't until I got into high school that my parents relaxed the rules on what games I could play. I eventually got my first job, purchased a secondhand PS2 as well as a 3DS, and finally was able to truly introduce myself into the Megaten series, with both Persona 3 FES and SMT 4. To say Megami Tensei is my favorite series is probably an understatement, and also kind of inaccurate. This is a bit of a simplification, but for those of you who are unaware, Megami Tensei is kind of multiple different franchises, including the mainline SMT games, Persona, Devil Survivor, Digital Devil Saga, Devil Summoner, arguably Catherine, and even more games I've never had the chance to play. It's a really important franchise with various different sub-franchises I'm passionate about. I bought a PS4 with my grad money specifically because I wanted to play Persona 5, which, looking back, was a terrible idea, considering it wasn't even announced for the system back then, and unbeknownst to me was still years away. These games have had a major effect in my life. They're indirectly responsible for why I'm here today trying to entertain you all. It's probably the only series I've felt such a devotion to that I feel the need to complete each game I play. Obviously for Fire Emblem, my tale's quite a bit different. To me, Fire Emblem has always been that game where the Smash Bros. Characters Marth, Roy, and Ike came from. Like most, I first got exposed to the series with Awakening, and I thought it was really good. I played all the games what came after, and even went back to try out some of the older games with an official English release. I'm planning on trying Genealogy of the Holy War after finding an English translation, but have yet to do so. So I'm sure you can imagine my excitement when shortly after my formal introduction to each of these franchises, Nintendo announced they were making a crossover between them. Now, this certainly isn't the first time elements of each of these franchises were shared. Obviously, any outside observer would say the mere fact that SMT is a turn-based JRPG means that it has at least some basic strategy elements. And even if we ignore Fire Emblem's different attack options, shops, and leveling up system, Fire Emblem experimented with RPG mechanics as early as the second game in the series. Or at least I'd assume it did based on Shadows of Valentia. Megami Tensei even has its own game series, Devil Survivor, which is as close to a turn-based strategy game we've ever seen from the franchise, but with a heavier emphasis on including the fantastic RPG systems the Megaten franchise is so well known for. Even if we ignore Devil Survivor, there's still a major emphasis on exploiting your enemy's weaknesses in pretty much all the games. The press-turn battle system makes every crit, exploited weakness, buff, debuff, and miss have massive impacts on the flow of battle, to the point where a single mistake can destroy you. This crossover was completely unexpected, but after hearing the idea, it seemed like a match made in heaven. And on January 23rd, 2013, at the tail end of a Nintendo Direct, we were blessed with this concept. Immediately after seeing this trailer, I was blown away. I admittedly wasn't too familiar with many of these characters at this point, but it ignited a passion to learn more about each franchise. All of these characters, of various different combat styles and designs, fighting together in what appears to be the post-apocalyptic Tokyo setting the Megaten franchise is so famous for? Sign me up! But what could this game be? It hardly shows us anything in the teaser. Well, let's break it down. Obviously, it's a crossover between both series, we can tell that much from the title. The world seems to take inspiration from Megami Tensei, so it's a fair assumption the enemies will be demon. So exploiting enemies' weaknesses will be a lot more important. Well, if that's the case, they'd want to display Fire Emblem in some way, so I assume the combat is probably going to be more akin to the turn-based strategy game, maybe with a wide variety of attack options with different elemental abilities possible to use during battle. It's also a fair assumption that maybe the story structure will be a bit more linear and mission-based, similar to what you see in the Fire Emblem series. A reasonable assumption to make, and the exact one going on in my head at this point. Apparently I wasn't alone. Although definitely not a significant sample size, I did host a poll asking some people what they expected of the game, and my assumptions were the majority. Something I noticed quickly was the imbalance between the number of heroes. Excluding SMT If, Atlus really only displayed 2 characters from each of the numbered games in their mainline series. They don't even have the Space Marine. This roster is far less than the potential Fire Emblem characters in the game. Could this be a crossover for the entire Mega 10 franchise? Now, I know this is going to seem ridiculous, but look at this meme. This is one of the 2 events what inspired me to make this video. Some time ago, there was a petition to make this a real game. Obviously, it wouldn't amount to anything, but in theory, it's not a terrible idea. Now, the concept of characters from various sub-series of an overarching franchise, featuring Lucifer and God engaging in a constant struggle between law and chaos, in multiple different depictions of post-apocalyptic Tokyo, all getting along and playing tennis together is completely absurd. But it does propose a great idea. Why don't more of these characters interact? Sure, we had Raito and Nocturne and the Demi-Theme and Digital Devil Saga, not counting DLCs of course, but why stop there? The Persona games have their many crossovers between the 3 most recent games, although until recently there was nothing acknowledging the PS1 games, except for the occasional Easter egg about Maya Amano from the Persona 2 games. Obviously those characters exist in the same universe, whereas Demi-Theme and Flame do not. But interdimensional travel isn't out of the realm of possibility in Megami Tensei. Most notably, Aradia does it in Nocturne, and she seems to be able to take mortals with her. If Marth, Roy, Hector, Ike, Crom, and Lucina could enter this world, then what's stopping the Space Marine, Aegis, Raito, Seraph, or, since we're discussing crossovers, Masahiro Sakurai, aka Spooky from Soul Hackers? I had extremely high hopes for this game, and a clear idea of what I wanted. However, Atlus had other plans. For 2 years, we heard nothing. Atlus went completely radio silent. They announced the game way too prematurely and had nothing to show for it. Although this definitely isn't an uncommon practice for them, and it certainly isn't as bad as certain other studios, this was my first experience with a delay like this from them. I, like many, assumed the game was in development hell. Another Duke Nukem Forever, Cyberpunk 2077, or Half-Life 3, where even if it was released, it did never live up to my hype. Little did I know, the development of the game was progressing, somewhat smoothly, and the reason they were taking so long to show anything was because they completely changed direction of the project after that first trailer. On April 1st, 2015, we got a Nintendo Direct which would show us the first look at the new direction for this game. I remember that day well. Bill Trinen introduced it as vaguely as possible, the Atlus and Nintendo logos appear on screen, and from the initial moments, I'm excited to see what's to be revealed. There's a nugget of hope in the back of my mind that this could be SMT x Fire Emblem, but the start of the trailer quickly crushes that dream. It clearly must be one of those slice-of-life, fight monsters, go-to-school anime IPs you see announced all the time. I quickly realized this isn't the game for me. It's a bit too anime for my liking. Don't get me wrong, although I wouldn't consider myself an anime fan, I certainly have enjoyed a passable amount of mainly horror, Japanese animation series, manga, and video games with anime art style. I was more disinterested by the fan service. The heavy slice-of-life elements wasn't too appealing, and wait, is that Tiki? Come to think of it, the stripe on that sword sort of reminds me of the Falchion, and the shadowy guy reminds me a bit of Marth, and what's up with that Pegasus? I was definitely in denial. This couldn't be the game I've waited years for. This is the exact opposite of what I wanted. It all must be some in-season April Fool's joke. But Bill Trinen confirmed my fears. This was Shin Megami Tensei x Fire Emblem, later to be known as Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Now, how did we get here? How did we go from this beautifully grim post-apocalyptic crossover featuring protagonists from all games to... Well, let's take a look at the most trusted primary source of information you should definitely use 100% of the time, Wikipedia! The game itself was originally planned to be, well, exactly what I expected it to be. A grid-based strategy game with heavy themes from SMT. However, there was also a lot of confusion on who would develop the game. Would it be Atlus or Intelligent Systems in charge? Eventually, Atlus started working on the project, and they were eager to make the game. They put Mitsuru Hirata, supporting director from Strange Journey, and Eiji Ishida of Strange Journey and SMT4 fame in charge. Two games I consider the best in the mainline series, even after the release of SMT5. But they're also two turn-based RPGs, and even looking at their development history, I don't see any experience on strategy games, excluding Hirata's supporting role on the TurboGrafx CD port of Lords of the Rising Sun, a game I'm only learning about while researching for this video. They were later convinced by producer Hitoshi Yamagami and the staff at Intelligent Systems to stick with what they knew. The setting was inspired by early plans for Awakening, being in a more modern-day setting, and really? I don't believe this for a second. Sure, this is what they gave to the press, but let's get real. The reason they said that is because it's a lot more acceptable to mainline fans than hearing, "We want to make Persona money." Obviously, this game predates Persona 5, Atlus's smash hit, which almost certainly is their best-selling game of all time. But it's clear with the onslaught of Persona 4 spin-offs, what are still being re-released, that Atlus knew that the Persona series was their golden goose to continue milking into oblivion. Instead, they chased the money and made Persona 4.5, which from a business perspective is understandable, but very disheartening. So eventually the game comes out, and it gets generally favorable reviews. I already mentioned I've never played it, but I do have friends who have. The general consensus is that it's a good RPG, what makes interesting commentary on the state of the idol industry in Japan. Getting information on the total sales is difficult. Most of the information I can get is only from the first few weeks. However, according to VG Charts, it seems to have sold somewhere around 330,000 globally, almost half of SMT4's global sales, and nowhere close to the over 2 million Fire Emblem Awakening sold. According to the same website, this is roughly 50,000 less than Persona 4 Dancing All Night's PS Vita release. I feel like this is the best comparison since both were initially released on systems generally considered to be failures. Underselling a rhythm-based spin-off of a PS2 game from 2008 probably wasn't what Atlus was hoping for their debut 8th generation console release. So what happened? With all the hype this game had, why didn't it see the success of some of the other games in the series it was representing? Well, I feel like the shift from SMT x Fire Emblem to Tokyo Mirage Sessions didn't do the desired effect. Where the goal was presumably to draw in the Persona fans, they ended up making a project which didn't appeal to any of those groups. The SMT fans were upset because Atlus has a long history of putting Persona front and center. They felt, and in many ways still do, feel neglected. Fire Emblem fans didn't have any of the strategic gameplay, interesting setting, or political themes in the story. You can't sell a game on waifu shipping alone. Persona fans probably didn't pay too much attention because it wasn't Persona. Sure, many of the Fire Emblem characters function in a similar way to Persona, but this isn't a Persona game. It's a Tokyo Mirage Sessions game. It mainly seemed to just appeal to weebs, plus being released on the Wii U didn't help the sales numbers. This is purely my assumption, but it feels like in an effort to appeal to more people, Atlus alienated the dedicated audience who would buy the game at launch and never truly captured the attention of the fans they tried appealing to. So why am I talking about this now? Why am I, in 2022, bringing up a game revealed in 2013 and released in 2016? Well, partially for closure, not just for myself, but the larger SMT fanbase. In March 2017, a video titled Shin Megami Tensei Q Fire Emblem was released, beautifully recreating the Persona Q opening with SMT and Fire Emblem characters, which is reasonable. Quality animation by a presumably small or possibly even solo group of fans can take a while, and the wounds were probably still fresh. But the first time I saw that video was a few months ago, on a fan page saying, "Never forget what they took from us, never forgive." Before SMT5 came out, I'd see quite a lot of people talking about Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, through memes or just general lamenting of the game we got instead. Although the previously mentioned fan video was a small sample size, many of the comments in that video, including those from people who enjoyed Tokyo Mirage Sessions, generally agree that this hypothetical game from the animation, featuring characters from both series interacting, is what we should have gotten instead. The second thing what initially inspired me to make this video was the gameplay reveal of Monarch, an upcoming game by a group of ex-Atlus developers. Seeing the turn-based strategy-esque combat of the reveal trailer reawakened my desire for a game like this. It made me want to put into words, arguably too many words judging by the script length, how much I wanted and still want, not just a straight-up Shin Megami Tensei strategy game, but a Shin Megami Tensei crossover. To a lesser extent, while more so appealing to the XCOM fan in me, Guns Undarkness, the upcoming indie title by legendary Persona composer Shoji Meguro, also did that same thing. Sadly, with an upcoming year of announcements to celebrate Persona's 25th anniversary, and the recent release of Shin Megami Tensei 5, originally announced in 2017, it's unlikely we'll get more Megaten news. Although SMT5 is currently the best-selling in the series, its 1 million units still doesn't even come close to Persona 5 sales. I fear that we'll never get that crossover I've always hoped for. Definitely not with the Fire Emblem series, probably not with any other games in Megami Tensei. Instead, we just have Yu Narukami, as he dances all night on the graves of what could have been. Now that's how I was going to end this video. This next part is unscripted, so just bear with me. But when I was finishing up my recording and just about to start editing, Atlus released a countdown with something involving soul hackers. I've been keeping track of it for the past week, and it's Soul Hackers 2. I was originally just going to put it in like in a little text over when I talk about how there's not going to be another SMT spin-off, but this has the same team as Tokyo Mirage Session, and that's causing a lot of fans a lot of concern. Personally, I'm willing to give them a chance. I think what they showed off seems interesting and could be a unique take on the series, and yeah, I'm eager to see what they'll make. A lot of fans are pretty concerned based on the art style and the team's past work, but I'm pretty optimistic. I'm eager to see how it's gonna turn out. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, check out my other video, what I have on here, and I hope you enjoyed, and like, comment, subscribe, that whole thing, whatever. Anyway, I'm off to restart the original Soul Hackers, so enjoy your day. Bye.